show of hands, who is a business owner in here or somebody involved in a business? And then raise your hand if you would be interested in being involved in the chapter of conscious capitalism here, where we incubate, we learn from each other. So this is good news. We want to make sure that you sign in. We already have your emails, by the way. But don't let us be annoying. We're not that annoying, I don't think. We're going to send some stuff out, some follow-up. We want to build this chapter so it really serves all of you that are in business, that are running businesses, that work for businesses, so pretty much most of the people here. I want to just say thank you to Todd Shaver. Todd, this is your house here, the Mountain Chalet, and you jumped on board with such enthusiasm to be a part of Jesus Love, to be a part of this. You've been around for a very long time hosting amazing speakers. Thank you for being a part of this and bringing energy. But after business lectures, a 43-year tradition, you've been holding that course for quite a while, and it's really a wonderful thing. So we're honored to have you. Evan Zislis is the operations director at CoVenture, Tyler's new thing with Oriana and his wonderful wife and all the other people down there. Nicola Sisto, I see you here as one of our sponsors. Thank you so much for jumping on board. Aspen Talks Health, an amazing talk show, really, and so many other things. And then Danielle Howard, I don't know where you are, but thank you so much for being a supporter and a sponsor of what we've done here. She does a lot of the same work as Liz Twist. If you guys saw her at Viva's Love, we'll be hosting a seminar at some point with her. So we get that stuff going, and just really heartfelt thanks, because we can't do it alone. We appreciate all of you that are here. So without further ado, I would love to bring up my husband, Murdock. One of the best decisions he ever made in his life. Now that's what you would think. That's all it is. No, the best decision he ever made was to make a wrong turn when he was going to fail 30 years ago to move into a place he had already rented. And he missed the turn where he was heading toward Aspen. And he was like, oh, Aspen, I've heard of that place. And therefore, he continued driving his car, just imagining that one moment in time where he would have been in Vail. But instead, he goes into Aspen, and he was sort of like, Aspen, Colorado. He heard about it, never been here before. Something about the Sardi House, something about the Aspen Institute. He decided to put some roots down here. Forget the place he was, everything went there. Yes. And the little house surfing here in Aspen didn't even have money to pay rent at a certain point in life. That's something we have to share. We both have lived in our cars in different parking lots around the world. And that's one of the ways that we go on. Jerry now, he's the founder of a company called Inside Venture Partners. Now, luckily, I met him in the high side of life. It wasn't back in the parking lot where we were sharing, coffee out of a tin can. This was back when he already made it, and is now a guy who is in charge, formally, he did retire when he got married, of a company that's $23 billion in capital. I don't even know what that means, but that's a really big deal. He started it with no pedigree. He doesn't have the right degree. He went to San Diego State. He worked as a waiter, a busboy even. He sold pies out of the back of his car. He had a t-shirt business that failed. So on and on and on. He had a very interesting life. At least the second best decision he's ever made in his life. So please welcome Jerry Murdock. He's going to kind of work. He's so excited, and I'm so excited. I find to get to wear this shirt.
Well, I don't feel a lot of public speaking, but that's a unique introduction. I thought I got invited here to Conscious Capitalism because I was lucky enough to marry her, and but you know, this I'm going to talk about some things that work for me. That's all I can really do. She's right about the long term in Brentwood. That experience was an interesting one because I had a partner rented about pizza and pane. I had pizza every day of my life for years. I was 31 years old. And I had my little car and I decided to come learn to ski. I was 31. I had up and down a couple of times, as she kind of mentioned. I guess I was 26 when I had lost the t-shirt business, and I went into a company called Sales Consultants ran to Recruiters International to get a job as a recruiter, to find a job, right? I went there and gave my resume. I was a degree in political science from San Diego State. I was president of my own t-shirt company. And they interviewed me twice. They brought me back the next day and said, look, we got to level with you. You have no skills that anyone would want. You can't possibly work with you if you're a job. However, we like you. You can come work with us. So I had taken one Fortran coding class at San Diego State. And they said, okay, you go work in this thing called data processing. Go find companies that will hire you to go find people. And literally, I didn't know what I was doing, but I called up these startups and said, hey, can I find some people for you? And people said, well, how do you know you won't take them out of here? So I figured out I was trade half my fee for stock. The second placement I did back in 1986 was a VP marketing at a company called Microsoft. The woman was the VP marketing at Apple who did the 1984 a Super Bowl commercial. And so I got half my fee in stock in Microsoft and went public. Like 6 months later, I said, wow, this is a good business. And the same thing with Oracle, these little startup companies back then. And so I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. And then after 2 years, people started leaving their jobs. I was so passionate about finding people a job and thinking they'd stay with it for a long time. Leaving after 2 years made me realize that I wasn't anything. I was just whatever, just doing something for money. So I quit. I said, that's it, I'm done. Can't do this anymore. And that started the downhill because I didn't know how to make a living really. I had no skills. Then there were three. And I said, I'm just going to move to Aspen. I'm going to learn to ski and figure it out. And so I literally took my car. I had like a little chunk of money, drove to Vegas from California, lost half of it, came to Aspen. And it lasted about 9 months, and somewhere around that, I was house surfing. I was out of a place to live. But it was magical living here. I mean, really, Aspen, everything that's good in my life today comes from that long turn. And literally, I got off the freeway in Glenwood Springs to get gas and turned around at 82 going the wrong way before I realized that I was like, oh, back there. And I saw the sign. And the sign that said Aspen, and something came over to me that I should see it. It wasn't like, oh, I've heard of it so much. It was a feeling that said, oh, I should go see this. And literally, I fell in love with the town in the first 4 hours. And this is it. I rented a house the next day. I was in conundrum, nowhere. Kind of a bad place if you want to date and you're single. No one wants to go out there. Made some bad moves there, but what happened to me when I got here is I kind of woke up a little bit. And I want to talk about 5 things, I call it AID, that helps me be present for the vision. And it started about that same time I got left from, because it wasn't intuition that made me feel, wow, this is the place to go. So the first thing is to be aware or alert enough to account for at least 2 possible outcomes with each decision. We always are optimistic or overly pessimistic, and we don't think there's one out. There's always 2, and being disciplined about that really helps. So I want you to remember that, because as I get through the narrative, these themes are going to come out of the narrative. The second thing is have access to intuition. Does everyone know what intuition is? Well, let me just check it out there for a second. Okay? I'm going to ask a couple people a question. I'm going to ask you to answer it immediately. All right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you right now? How are you? 10. 10. Okay. So what did that say? Some people in that group probably have to use their intuition because they didn't have time to think about the answer. That's one way to understand, hey, if you need it, it's there if you call it intuition. How many of you have ever had someone in a conversation, you don't really know them, you don't know what they're talking about, but you're absolutely certain they're lying to you? How many have it? Okay, there we go. That's another good example of intuition. Now, how often do we have intuition? 1% Once a week? How many once a week feel some kind of intuition? Once a day? Once a day, I mean, it's pretty good. Once a month? Once an hour? Okay, that's pretty good. So having access to intuition is decision making has two components, the rational side and the intuitive side. Third, every decision counts. Because decision making, for me, is a form of navigating your life. And if you think about navigating, if I follow Google Maps to get here, if I just miss one turn, I'm screwed up, right? It may correct me, or maybe not. But everything counts. Every little thing counts is where you are. Next thing, a lot of decisions actually are improvisations. We think, we plan, and yet life gives us moments where we have to decide, like I just did there. It's an improvisation. You have to figure it out right then and there. You have to assess, make a decision. And other times, you can be aware of the time that I don't need to make a decision right now. And that's another part of it too, being awake enough to say, hey, I don't need to do this right now. But figuring it out so you're not procrastinating, you're not missing it. It's feeling when you need to make a decision. So, in the last point I needed, the fifth one, is tenable communication, tenable connection, tenable circumstances often lead to life-changing events. I don't know about you, but in my life, everything that happened that changed my life was very fragile things. A simple phone call, a lot of different things. When I came here at 31, I didn't have a whole lot of skills. But, I had a passion for technology, a passion for the unknown, passion for entrepreneurship. I'd already had really this t-shirt company. I had already, in fact, had my own little business in the search fund. And now I was here as a consultant in my third business called the Aspen Technology Group. And we were advising firms and making a little bit of money. But in 1991, that was a recession. So that was impossible to find any kind of work. So it was a tough year personally. My brother got sick, died in 1991. It got so bad. I saw no way out. It was the actual rock bottom. And I was just actually laughing because I said, okay, I'm only 33 years old. It can't be this bad. But it was. But if you hold on to your passion for something and your persistence with that passion, you don't give up on it. Because there's lots of opportunities to go a different direction and say, give up on what I was doing. And I was, in 92, I was able to enable the free use of condominium in Home Desert. And I went out there and lived there for free, scraping by. And luckily, I had all these companies that had stock in it back when I was 100 years ago. And every once in a while, one of them would get sold, and I'd get a little bit of money. It would just show up. Out of nowhere. To recognize which patterns. What we find with the best entrepreneurs, they go from the known into the unknown, and they bring back trophies of understanding. The ones that are smart enough to surround themselves with the best people, that trophy is a shared experience. So again, that sort of discernment to have the right people. And to be an entrepreneur, you have to have this ability to tell a narrative. You recruit people based on vision, but if you can't express the vision, it's not going to work. We like to say in Aspen, the difference between a tech entrepreneur and a used car salesman is the used car salesman knows that they're lying. Because they're talking about the unknown. Like it's known. It's not known until they do it. Twitter wasn't known until they did it. It started off as a podcast company and then decided to be Twitter. It changes. Instagram started off as Bourbon Street, and then it became Instagram. A lot of the best thing in the world is this pivot. And the pivot is because the entrepreneur knows how to improvise, knows how to use intuition, knows how to recognize what the possibility is. Now, the trick is to not only know
the journey from the known to the unknown, and it's iterative, it's back and forth every day, but it's also, what's the unknowable? How do you avoid depleting your energy pursuing the unknowable? I mean, we think this of athletes all the time. They can do the impossible, but they don't go after the unknowable. You know, because the impossible can change, right? I mean, this great extreme skier, Stefano de Benedetti, said, you know, living in the mountains, my vision began to change. And I could see what was once impossible, how it could be possible, right? And there's people in this room that have done the impossible. But you have to be able to know, you have to recognize that there are things that are beyond the limits of us knowing what they are. And in technology, we see it all the time. Ideas that are way ahead of time. So being conscious of that. So the other point that I meant to make, timing's everything, humility, thinking about others. In fact, Jeff Bezos, his mom and dad live here part-time, wonderful people. Jeff has an empty chair at every board meeting, and this represents the customer. He built this entire thing on the value of understanding the customer and trying to give something. Now, who knows what company's so big now, you don't know how evil it is or how good it is, but for sure, he did it because he was thinking of other people. There's no question about that. Being persistent with passions. I mean, almost all these entrepreneurs have stories at the pivot where the first thing failed, but they stayed true to their passion. They stayed persistent with passion. And if you hold on to that and make good decisions, usually something good happens eventually. But you've got to look for those tenuous circumstances. The other fundamental thing to set up decision making is being congruent. What do I mean by that? Congruent means intention to action, having an alignment in those things. Don't, if you want to have a child, don't marry an 80-year-old man. Probably not going to live. Right? Don't waste time dating an 80-year-old guy. In the normal sense. That said, so going from intention to action, and then from action to goals. Having a sort of consistency of your actions. This is something I've seen in a pattern of entrepreneurs, you can tell. So even though the business is still at this startup stage, 12 people, Snapchat, what do you see? You look at Evan Spiegel and you see that those abilities are already there by the way they talk about what they've done in their life. And you look for that consistency. And people that say, I'm going to do this and do something else, well, that maybe the intention and the action are not lined up properly. So when you think about a business side of things, the 5 things I'm going to go over again is think about others in humility, recognize that timing is everything, be persistent with your passion, be congruent, and finally, really important, be aware that information has a half-life. Claude Shannon, back in the 40s, was the father of information theory. But then any of you took chemistry in high school? Okay. If you remember from high school chemistry, every bit of matter has radioactive decay. Every piece, every atom is decaying. Well, guess what? Information, like matter, is decaying. So the moment it's created, it starts to lose value. So you have to, in your mind, when you think of something, you get some information, you have to decide to move on it or not. But don't think that information is going to be worth as much the next day, the next month, the next year. It's really, really important to recognize the state of life that things are decaying in a constant rate. And getting the best information, particularly in today's technology world, we need to get data-driven. We need to be aware of what data is coming our way and what that information means. So what I want to do now is get to this idea of rational versus intuitive. When we decide things, having both function, this is your human heritage. Most of us make decisions without including the intuitive. The intuitive happens, we recognize it, but we're not intending it. Intuition, we all agree we now know what it is, but why is it so elusive? Why is it not there all the time? I mean, decision making for me, I make bad decisions every single day. It's a batting average. And by the way, you're making decisions about things if you're not conscious that you should make decisions. For example, running a red light. You should have made a decision to stop, but you didn't. That could have cost you your life or someone else's life. Things like that are happening all the time. The information is coming at you, and you have to be conscious enough to say, should I make a decision? In this dimension, decision-making is critical. This is how we navigate life. And we don't put enough emphasis on it, at least I don't. We get comfortable. We love our habits, right? I mean, I used to work out at the Aspen Club, and I had to go to a Little Nell for dinner, and for where I would drive, 80% of the way was right to Durant Street and Original, and I'd end up, instead of going to dinner at Little Nell, I'd end up in the parking lot at the Aspen Club. I was just sound asleep. And then I'm backing into the parking lot, what am I doing? I'm going to dinner, not the gym. And my life is filled with this stuff. And I rigorously try to overcome those habits, because those habits cost you. When we hear about these terrible tragedies, it's habits like that. So decision-making is not just the things you do, it's the missed opportunity to make a decision, right? So, and the third thing is what happened to me in Glenwood Springs when I made the wrong turn. It's making maybe the wrong decision and let an intuition, rationally, and let an intuition come into the picture and say, wait a minute, maybe it's not the wrong decision. So life and decision-making is an iterative process. We're never finished with it. The best entrepreneurs are ones that are constantly in this iterative process. There's never this idea that the decision is locked. What's locked is the values underlying it. All the great companies have a set of values of who we are. This is what higher purpose is about. Higher purpose is we live here to reach these in a certain way, that these values give me that higher sense of purpose. So I'm not constantly thinking about what I want or what I need. And so decision-making, if we can remember, iterative process, always rethinking about what's happening, and recognize that missed opportunity, in fact, Benchmark, my friend Peter Fenton is founder of Benchmark, they the venture capitalists behind Uber, they were in Twitter, they were in Snapchat, they were in Instagram. What makes them different is they don't criticize themselves for bad decisions that they made to invest. They criticize themselves for those decisions where they didn't invest. Think about that. What are the things you're missing out because you don't even consider it? Now, I spoke earlier about my hated idea, the 5 ideas where, being alert enough that you always account for both possibilities. And in life, we want our life to be the way we want it. And we hit the wall sometimes. And hitting the wall is a painful thing. And we're hitting the wall because we're not listening. We have to hit this wall and crash into it because we weren't awake. If we were, we'd know the wall's coming. We'd see it. And in business myself, that's my personal experience anyway. My t-shirt business, picked the wrong partners, down the drain. I spent 6 months in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, still screening shirts for nothing. I mean, it was horrible. Only had junk food every day. That's all they had. It was, we really need to think about this sense of being awake and being alert and bringing intuition into our life. Intuition for me is something that not only can you use it every day, and how do you know it's the right feeling, right? Because sometimes we think, oh, it's our wishful thinking that gives us that feeling. Does anyone have an answer to that? How do you know it's really intuition, it's not just wishful thinking? Huh? What do you think?
I'm gonna take a guess. If you don't have anything to gain or lose from it.
Say that again?
If you don't have anything to gain or lose from it. If you don't have any, if you just are neutral about the situation.
Okay.
That feeling of trusting your gut, and feeling it
It's a
deep
feeling.
inside you.
Okay, so what do you think?
Well, sometimes if you have an intuition, if you don't try it, whether you're right or wrong, it doesn't matter, because how would you test it? So you have to try it. you have to be wrong.
Well, how do you know it's your intuition, not wishful thinking?
Because it's a feeling, not.
All right, well, let me get to this. We all have ideas. You have to figure out what works for you. I can't tell you what it is except to say that you can curate that feeling of intuition in your life. Curate that feeling of what is right. I'll tell you something. If I look at my life, and what I'm happy is that I guess in other words, I'm living the life I wanted to live, but it's nothing like I imagined it. The life that, let's say, the universe had by following decisions that were intuitively based and rationally thought through, but they always had intuition. That life is miles beyond the life I could imagine for myself. So be open to what is sort of outside yourself. I don't know what that exactly means, except that intuition is something that has no explanation in rational thought. We all know it, we can discuss it, but there's no way we can ascribe rational value to it. All the great serendipity in the world. Like, I want to talk about something right now, a little quote from a book. As it turns out, 2009 was an important year because that was the year that Gina and I decided to start hanging out together. I was also in the jungle in Guatemala on a live archaeological dig. And I'm going to read this little quote from David Friedel, who's one of the great Mayan archaeologists. And he's introducing my preface to On the Path to the Sun. This is a book that I co-edited. It came out last year that, because of all the other great work, I was just one of 4 editors. This is, in the academic Mayan world, a bestseller. The paperback edition comes out in March, and our second printing is happening now. And he says this about the book.
What's the name of the book here?
It's called Maya E-Groups. And E-Groups is it's really technical architecture about a plaza, the very first thing that this civilization built. But what his quote says is this, and literally this is how this book came into being, and there's already a second book now that's follow-up to this, called Being Maya. And he said this, he said, in the spring of 2009, we sat in Don Reggie's small office in San Pedro Petén, Guatemala. In a conversation with a piece of paper on the desk between us, Jerry Murdock was asking questions about the feathered serpent. The Itza sage drew a picture with a line, with feather-like lines coming off of it. He looked at Jerry and pointed to the main line and said that this was the direct path, but that often we're tempted to go down the side paths. Whether it's serendipity or determined persistence, or both, our path has taken us directly to this book and the Sun Path and the earliest people of Southwest Mesoamerica. Now, this is a scientist talking about woo-woo stuff. If this guy comes down, we sit with the Mayan sage, and because we have a drawing about what's the direct path, all of a sudden, a best-selling book comes out of it that's a kind of collaborative work that brought these Mayans together in a way that hadn't happened. And so a lot of the Mayan research you see with LiDAR and all this stuff in the press, these are the names in this book that are discovering all this amazing stuff. And it literally came out of that meeting. So, and I had no idea. Why would I edit a book on Mayan archaeology? I have a degree in political science from San Diego State. I had a teacher come in. Why am I doing this? Because you follow your passion and you can bring something. I had a teacher tell me that passion, or love, is the highest form of intelligence. Now, I spoke with the Dalai Lama. Gina and I went to see the Dalai Lama on our honeymoon. And that was, we stayed in monks' quarters in the palace. Not the most romantic idea. That one I kind of messed up a little bit, you know. There's nothing romantic about that. But we did get to spend some time with him, and he said, and I told him that quote. And he said, yes. He said, love is the end point of intelligence. Now, from a business perspective, it's passion that makes you smarter about things. So if we think about what makes you smart, what makes you intelligent, it's passion. And that's been the thing that's brought me here today. So without further ado, unless there's questions, I just want to wrap it up and say, thank you very much.
I think we should have
Yeah,
any
because-
questions.
Turn on the shoot button.
Hey, that was great. That was great. I was
Just so you know, if you could have it back. This one's-
that's probably true, but I thought
People are gonna
potentially there
comment.
might be some questions you
Raise
could
your
ask
hand.
Jerry about
This is-
a myriad
this
of
is-
things that you heard about tonight.
This is the one
Um,
that's wearing the last.
I'll pass around the microphone if I can get to you, otherwise just speak really loudly. And as far as time goes, we're doing well. I don't want you to feel trapped, but if you need to leave, go ahead, but please don't. And I do want to say really quickly, if you bought a ticket and you didn't get it already, your ticket comes with a drink, so stick around after if we have time to go through that.
Mr. Perlman, actually doctor. This Mayan Mesoamerica thing, I would like to understand the decision process that got you into something that seems completely bizarre to me, out of your realm.
You mean the Mayan archaeology?
Yeah.
Okay. I was interested in decision making. I went to Chaco Canyon back in the 90s. I've been on the board of the Santa Fe Institute since 1995, and it's in Santa Fe. It's a bunch of really smart people. An Aspen local named Murray Gilmon recruited me to come to the board, and I got involved with these people, and they're studying how those cultures emerge. And what was interesting, I go to Chaco Canyon with these scientists, and there's a building there, which until mid-19th century was the largest building in the United States. The Pueblo Bonito is the size of the Roman Colosseum. So for the first 100 years or so of our country, it was the largest building. It was abandoned. Who built this? It was built in somewhere maybe between 750 AD and 1075 AD. And they found a room with these long cylinders. And I'm just thinking this is cool stuff. And in the cylinder, they find this organic material. Well, they went and did the research, and it turns out it was chocolate. Chocolate. I'm like, what is chocolate doing in New Mexico? And you look around, and all this iconography is the plume serpent. And the plume serpent is this idea that's true with all Mesoamerican peoples and many peoples here in America of transformation. The serpent comes out of the ground, has feathers, goes in the sky, and it's this transformation. It's also about the path. So I was interested in how ancient people made decisions in their life. How did this massive city come, and how did these people in New Mexico have clearly contact with these people that in Guatemala, or Yucatan Peninsula? At least that's where the chocolate is. And that got me curious. So curiosity and passion. And like I said, when I was in high school, I had to write a paper in psychology class. Who are you? And my paper was, I'm a patternologist. I wanted to study the patterns that made up my friends, myself, life. And as part of that paper, I said at the end of it, I think that the questions that I ask determined the quality of my life. And lo and behold, it has, because if you start with a question, in fact, when you go to make a decision, one of my techniques, if I don't want to call intuition, is get really quiet and ask a question. I mean, so many of my entrepreneurs have the biggest, by the way, challenge for companies that have failed. Wasn't that they had a bad idea, or they had a good market, or they had a good team. They misunderstood where they were in their journey. The metaphor I like to use is climbing Mount Everest or any 8,000 meter peak. If you think you're about to summit, and you're going to make the decisions, and you're at the first base camp, you're not going to make it. It's just if you misunderstand where you are on the journey and you make decisions for that, there's almost no chance you're going to make it. And a lot of people, because some entrepreneurs are so powerful, I'm gonna summit tomorrow. It's like you believe this stuff, right? And you have to have the discipline to understand, well, where are you really? And that process, understanding that, is what's been a really key lesson to me. When I look at the Mayan culture in particular, they created a culture over the last couple thousand years. And it's pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you get from 12 passionate people that start Instagram to a major company? Are you, as a VC investor and other board members, important in the decision making there?
A lot of my investments, I was a board member. A lot of them, I was also a board observer. I prefer being a board observer because when you meet a young entrepreneur and they're struggling with their dreams, life is tough. If you can be the one that can fire them, they never will trust you. So as early as I could, I had to deal with my limited partners that wanted me an active board member. But if I could not be a board member, I could have a better relationship. Because it was challenging to get the truth when things were tough. Because they're always concerned, hey, I better not tell them this. You might, people were afraid. My success or failure rate had a lot to do with getting trust. So I try to avoid being a board member in the case of Snapchat and Twitter. But I had a very deep relationship with the CEOs. I still do.